My name is Paul Gelose. I'm the manager of food services at Mercy Regional Medical Center, and I'm here to provide you some tips on how to cut vegetables today. First, I want to start with the cutting board, which is very important, but what's more important is I take a wet towel and I put it underneath here to keep my board nice and stable before I start cutting. Gives me good stability. I also have the bleach water here, and all it takes is a tablespoon of bleach per gallon of water, and that'll give you a sanitation bucket. It's good to keep your rag in the bucket while you're sanitizing or while you're cutting. Okay, the first thing I'll do is work with an onion. Basically, most vegetables have one or two ways to cut it, and if you learn those cuts, you can pretty much follow any recipe, whether they want to dice, depending on the size, or julienne of an onion, or a dice of an onion. So I'm going to give you those tips today. First, I'll start out with the onion. Onion is a vegetable that grows in the ground, so it is dirty, hence we have our sanitizing water. Some chefs like to keep this is where the roots would come out. I like to cut them all off. The roots is what carries a lot of dirt. In the dirt you'll find there's E. coli and salmonella and other various bacteria that you really don't want, especially if you're making a raw salad that's not going to be cooked. So it is important to clean your vegetables. So I cut my vegetable in half, my onion I should say, and before I start cutting, I'm going to clean my board off and get rid of any potential dirt that came out of that stem area. Now I have a nice clean, I sanitize my knife, and like I say, once again, we have a onion here that's cut in half. That's how I start all my onion cuts. I cut them and I peel them and I get both ends off. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to julienne an onion. And to julienne an onion, sometimes you'll see a core on these, and you just take it and you cut that core out. These don't really have that, but that's will keep the onion, it won't let it fall apart with that core. So if you do see the core, just cut it off. To julienne it, you start it this way and you cut it and then it starts to get a little wobbly for you, right? That's where people like to cut themselves. You just flip that over like that, get a nice base. And the key to cutting vegetables is making sure you have a good base to cut on. And so this is a julienne. You can see how it's stuck together like that. And that's what I'm saying. If you cut that out a little bit, then it makes it break up. So that's a julienne, and you would use this vegetable cut for French onion soup in particular. Sauteed onions for your steak, anything of that nature. So that's your julienne cut. And like, as I say, it's really simple. You just cut it thin, cut it thick, flip it over, get a nice base again, and that's your julienne onion. Super simple. Now to do a diced onion, once again, you do the same thing. You put that base down like that, and we're going to do a little different. We're going to cut, and we wanted a 1/4 inch. Well, we're going to make each slice a 1/4 inch all the way down. Now the next thing we're going to do, and it's really important to put your knife on an angle that goes away from your palm. You always want to cut away from yourself in 2 cuts on a small onion, maybe 3 cuts on a big onion. And now all we got to do is come down on it. Once again, I'm 1/4 inches into that onion. And then when I get down here, it gets a little wobbly again. I flip it over, a couple cuts like that. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Nice, beautiful 1/4 inch diced onion. Very, very simple. I'll do it one more time real quick. Just take your onion. Remember, we peeled it. We cut it in half and we skinned it. We washed our board down, and we're going to do a dice. We're going to do a little thinner dice on here. We're going to do a 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do it 3 times, and I can just kind of shave it a little bit and call it a mince, call it a 1/8 of an inch, whatever, and then you do the same on that. Beautiful. Okay, there's our onions. Okay. The next thing we'll do is celery. I'm just going to flip this board around so that the camera can get a better view of this. We're going to wipe it down. Onions tend to put a lot of flavor in your cutting board. So sometimes people will cut onions separately, but if you're making something that the onion's going to go into and the other flavors pick up off the onion, not that big of a deal. What you don't want to do is cut onions and then cut fresh fruit on it. because especially like watermelons and cantaloupes and that, you'll pick up the onion smell. So you really want to make sure that you have a vegetable board and a fruit board, or make sure you wash them in between. Next thing we're going to do is a carrot. This is our vegetable peeler. It's a Swiss style peeler. It's on an angle, but the Swiss came up with this design. It's a great design. So to peel it, you know, we just want to, super easy. You can save this for a vegetable stock. I don't like to put onion skins in my vegetable stock, and I definitely don't like to put the root in there that maybe has some dirt in there. So this is your carrot. Carrots can be a little trickier because they're hard and they're round and they want to move on you, and they're kind of scary because your knife wants to jump. First I do is come up with a workable size. I'm going to cut that in half. The next thing I'm going to do is create a base that's stable. Right? Now we have that stable base. That's the key. And once you have a stable base, you now can do your cuts. We're going to do 1/4 inch dice again. Okay? I flip that over, I get my base back again, and I can, you know, just like that. Super easy. You can leave them like this. If you're doing a vegetable tray with dips in that and you wanted to have sticks, you can leave that in that situation right there, or that position I should say. Or you can take it and then cut it, once again, 1/4 inch. Super easy. And that's the carrot. Now I'll just do a couple other cuts with the carrot. You know, you can do rounds, you can do half moons, you know, you can go a little bit on the bias, and that's a nice cut for a stir fry. The key to this particular vegetable is getting a good base. So once again, you want to cut that, make a base, and then you go back to it and get that base back. You can leave them in sticks. You can cut them. You can cut them bigger any way you want. So there's some examples of various cuts of carrots. Generally, the rule of thumb is when you're making a soup, your garnish, this would be considered garnish as your vegetables in your soup. The vegetable cut shouldn't be any bigger than the spoon that you serve your soup with. So if you have a small spoon, you want to have small cuts. If you have a big gravy spoon, Jethro style spoon, you can have bigger cuts. But basically, the garnish of the vegetables shouldn't hang over the soup spoon. So that's our carrots. Super easy. Now we go back to a celery. I took my celery, break it off. You can trim these down. You can save those for vegetable stock. I like to cut off the ends, but once again, I don't cut that much. And I really encourage everybody not to overcut your vegetables and throw too much out. You really don't have to trim down much. That's the trim I do on an onion. Super small, you know, like save the onion for eating and not throwing out. So with my celery, it's a little similar to the carrot. Once again, it's got a funny base to it, but it's a little easier. So some chefs like to do it this way. You can cut it into a size that's convenient for you. You can cut it in half and do it like that. It's not quite as uniform because I like to do mine and roll it to me a little bit. And so once again, you could keep those as sticks if you're doing a vegetable tray, or here we go, we just cut a 1/4 inch dice. And most of the time, your dices don't have to be perfectly perfect because you're going to cook them up, and you know they're gonna come to a different shape anyways. But as long as they're somewhat uniform, it'll look good in whatever dish you're making. Always want to do is when you're cutting is you want to make sure that your thumb is underneath and your fingers rolled. Your knife rolls on here, and you can see that my fingers are below me. So if I was to cut myself, I would skin my fingers up on this. I wouldn't do the tips. So that's the trick, and my thumb is out, always tucked under. So I take my vegetable and Once again, my fingers, so I ride my knife on my fingers a little bit, but not in a way that's going to cut me. So if my knife was to jump off the vegetable, I wouldn't cut myself. I might skin myself, but I won't cut myself to the point where I'm going to lose a fingertip or cut my nail off. So that's pretty much it. It's a real simple process. Like I say, every vegetable has 1 or 2 ways to be cut, and I just showed you the carrot, the onion, and the celery, and that is probably the top 3 vegetables that is used in the kitchen. In particular, the onion is the #1 vegetable that is used in kitchens worldwide. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation. We hope to do a few more, and if you have any input on what you'd like to see, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you very much.